Hello everyone, welcome to Mass Effect 3. So this is the spicy one. This is the one where people got really upset. It's funny, I knew EA, after buying BioWare, something bad was going to happen, but I never anticipated something quite like this. All that being said, I'll be honest here, I really do like Mass Effect 3 quite a bit. I think it gets a bad rap because of its ending, but the game overall is really good, and I think people turn off by the ending, which, again, I thought was, like, yeah, it wasn't great, but honestly, it wasn't as bad as people were saying it was, and it was a huge, I think, huge overreaction. I mean, yes, they do have like a different color and the same thing happening for each ending, but each one was also like thematically different. Could they have done more? Absolutely, but this was EA rushing games and making them put it out before they even could be finished, and this was kind of the beginning of the end when this game came out around 2012, I think, or 2013. And it was very unfortunate. So Mass Effect 3, where do we start off? So Mass Effect 2, we just spent a dicking around with the collectors, and now the Reapers are finally here, and we're out of time, basically. It's interesting, though, that this game takes place finally on Earth, and of all places, Vancouver. It reminds me that these series of games were made by a company out in Edmonton, Canada, so that's kind of a cool little reference. And so essentially, you're at the Human Council convening in Vancouver when suddenly talking about the Reapers, and they're like, oh, we're not really sure. And then finally they attack, and everything is wiped out at once. So the theme and reason for this that was established in the previous games was that the Reapers essentially created the relays to produce a certain technological path that humanity or any other alien races would develop along. Essentially make them reach the apex of their civilization, and then they would come in to destroy it and begin the cycle again. The reason for this is that they were created to do this to essentially keep the entropy of the universe in check, because otherwise, naturally, societies and civilizations collapse to the point where there could be no life ever again. And so apparently this reaping is necessary to keep any life in the galaxy sustainable, which is just by bringing it down to caveman levels instead of extinction, which I believe was the initial idea behind the original Reapers. And it's funny, I believe one of your characters, Javok or something, is actually an original Promethean, and he basically talks about a more ancient race that built the Reapers for this purpose, and he is a really great character. He's a wonderful character who talks, in this ancient style of speaking, obviously, and but unfortunately, I think he's DLC actually, which brings me to a main point about this game that I really almost recommend the DLC as necessary. The DLC in this game not only is amazingly well done, but just in general really adds a lot to the story. In fact, it kind of goes with the idea that BioWare really wanted to apologize for the reception that the ending got. So the DLC in this game, they put a lot of love and passion into it that I really frankly enjoyed. I mean, I'll talk about it later. So in this game, one thing I didn't like is that you have a lot fewer party members. You now do have Liara back, you have Garrus back, you have Tali back, and you then have... Okay, maybe I misspoke there, but you definitely have Garrus. And you now have Ashley and this new guy, James. And James is like, I don't know, everyone made fun of this a little bit, that Ashley's back, but now she's all wearing makeup, and James is kind of this buff out dude, and they look like the Jersey Shore. There's just nothing else to compare them to. They look like a bunch of bros, and it's just really interesting / funny. Oh god, there's also like Jessica Chobot from G4 is in this game, and so she was done as like this sexy reporter, and it's just a little bit cringe now looking at it, but it's funny that they were like, oh yeah, gaming media people, what if they were in our game as actual characters? It's just it's kind of funny, but yeah. So in this game, instead of the Geth, the Reapers have their own kind of collector style minions, who essentially are these humanoids that have been converted into Geth-like creatures. And like I said, if you get the DLC, you have a fair amount of units in your squad. James is actually a pretty fun character. I thought he'd be this dumb jock or whatever, but he was actually quite a lot of fun to play with, and he basically would be like, all right, Commander, let's go get him. And yeah, he was all right. He was better than I thought he would be. He's not a complete dumbass. Speaking of which, there are also the relationships in this game. You can, of course, pursue the normal ones, but there's also certain side characters you can actually have relationships with that aren't part of your playable crew, that are just part of the normal crew of the Normandy that you can pursue, which is interesting, including gay relationships, which is like, I guess, different in this game. Another thing this game introduces is a lot of weapon customization and loadouts. For your shotgun, you can have like three or four different types of things. Everything from the scope to the heat sink to the bullets to the muzzle. It gets very much into almost Call of Duty area. Another kind of scummy thing that EA did with this game is right from the start, the galaxy is at war, so it's very combat heavy and combat focused. And so right off the bat, you basically are given a list of war resources. And so these war resources are essentially things that, you get certain crews or groups to join, the war effort. And by using these, you can determine how prepared you are for the final battle. So, of course, you go in with few resources, similar to the Suicide Mission in 2, you're going to get your ass handed to you, and probably a lot of people are going to die. But either way, you basically only have about 3 endings to choose from, and a 4th special DLC one, which they added, which is free DLC, actually. The combat is basically the same in this game. Like I said, you have more weapon loadouts to choose from. There's some cool burst fire weapons, some machine pistols, different kinds of shotguns. But everything is still more or less the same, just a bit more, I guess, action-oriented. Again, you're going to have to do a lot of, final decisions in the series. This is a lot of, it really does feel like the final game because there's a lot of things that do end. For example, there's a whole aspect where you can choose to end the genophage for the Krogans. There's another mission where you can choose to, give the Quarians back their homeland in order to get them on your side. There's this whole thing where, all the galaxy's problems and, everyone's coming together, essentially, to do this thing. And, of course, you all want to help defend Earth, and that's a huge part of the campaign. And so this whole game has a very much, finish the fight kind of energy to it. Kind of almost a Halo 3 kind of energy that they wanted to... That was definitely in the marketing, that this is the last fight and it's on Earth. Something that's nice that you can do that I think you could do in previous games, but you can reset all of your skill points that you used and reassign them if you, messed up, essentially, and, find out exactly what the best kind of optimal route is. And, so you messed out, because there are branching paths that you get certain upgrades depending on, what you did beforehand, and you can choose again, by resetting all your skill points, which is nice. I think it does cost some credits, though. For this game, in terms of romances, I actually really liked Liara. I never liked her in the first game. She was just kind of nerdy and kind of weird, but she was a lot more sentimental and mature in this game, and I just really liked her as a character. It seems like in every game I'm kind of forced to choose, or I choose a different character. In the first game I chose Ashley just because it was the only choice. You basically, okay, who do you want to die, Kaiden or Ashley? I'm like, well, kind of hate Kaiden, so I guess I'll take Ashley. And I didn't really like Liara at the time either, so it was just for the sake of the game. While I really liked Tali in the second one, but by the third game, Liara had really changed as a character. She had kind of become the Shadow Broker now. She was a lot wiser and just a lot more interesting as a character, and I really enjoyed just spending time with her. Again, it's amazing how BioWare can make these amazing games where you can actually feel like these are almost real characters. And as the game goes on, you basically find that there are these documents to this ancient Promethean weapon that they were building to destroy the Reapers that kind of combined with the Citadel called the Crucible. And so the Crucible is essentially this item that was being created to just wipe out the Reapers as a final last-ditch attempt by this one advanced civilization. And so you kind of put all your war resources towards building this final Last Hope super weapon, and that's kind of where the last part of the game goes. There's also a cool part where you go to the Turian homeworld and you get to see their fleet in action, and you get to help defend them from the Reaper threat, which allies themselves to you as well. And so basically by the end of the game, you kind of, wrap up all the unfinished business, the loose ends, all the quarrels between the different races, and you basically combine them all into one unified fighting force and take on the Reapers, and you save the galaxy. And that's it. On the endings to this game, people kind of, again, they got really angry that, it was just like one different color. It was actually really kind of silly. It's like, if you chose the Paragon ending, you got a blue explosion, and if you chose the Renegade ending, you got a red explosion, and it was this exact same cutscene. But the actual context of what it meant and the actual result of it later is actually an interesting thing. Like, the context of the thing actually changed, and people were expecting, I expected this branching path where even from the very first choice of the game where I chose, if I was a human settler to, what my background was on Earth, that, that would, make a huge difference. And, I'd have a custom ending depending on all of my characters at the end of the game. And I guess maybe BioWare might have promised us at some point, because I have no idea where anyone got this idea. But, I just never had that in my mind that was a thing that was going to happen. So I really had no expectations for the ending of the game. I mean, it's all fine and well that people do hate it, because it was EA's fault again. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm kind of just not surprised totally by it. One thing I don't really like about this game, maybe, is the fact in the first game it took an entire armada to take out one Reaper, and now that they're all invading, you can take out a Reaper with pretty much on your own. It doesn't, the amount of effort required to take them out is just not as difficult as it used to be, which is just kind of a little bit silly, but honestly necessary for the story to move forward. Another cool thing about this game is that now your Omni tool now acts as a close combat weapon. You can hold it and it acts as a little sword thing that comes out and slices the enemy, which is really cool. Another big thing that also came out around this time, which was also very cool, was the fact, was on the Kinect and 360, 360 for Kinect, and also I think on Wii U or something. I think it actually used voice commands, so you could actually talk to your squad mates and they'd actually do what you ask, which is just super cheesy, but apparently that was a thing they integrated. This game was really weird because, again, they released this on things like Wii U without the previous games being on the Wii U, and so there's a whole lot of other stuff that was really, really just interesting and weird about this game, and it's kind of experimental. But yeah, so you got 3 endings, one Renegade Paragon and one Synthesis, which was this green ending, which I kind of think was the canon ending where everything got resolved the most peacefully, but it's really up to the player's interpretation which one is the real ending, because each one kind of feels legitimate in their own sense. And I might as well talk about them. One where you can decide to destroy all the Reapers, one you decide to control the Reapers, and a last one where you combine synthetic and biological biotics and biological life forms into one kind of being, I guess. And it really actually reminds me of the ending to Deus Ex, where you basically have the same choices, where you have the Solaris AI, you can choose to destroy it, merge with it, or I forget the last one. But anyway, there's also a 4th ending they introduced, is that when you are given this final choice, it's funny that this little AI thing that appears to you to ask you to choose is this little boy thing, and people hated the crap out of this character. And it's funny that you basically had 3 different paths to go down and make the final decision that, again, it disregarded all of your past decisions. And I'm not surprised by that. That was within the realm of my expectations. I never expected this huge branching story. So when people were complaining about it, I was really kind of confused. I was like, what's the problem here? I was honestly confused. What's the problem? Yes, the cutscenes look the same, initially, but then they also added this free DLC with these little cutscenes and stills to explain more about it. Like, I just don't understand what the big issue was, honestly. Like, each one is very different thematically. I guess it just wasn't to, I don't know, people's expectations. I don't know what they were expecting, but yeah. But there's a fourth ending, actually, where, you know, this child AI thing is asking you to choose, and you can basically choose nothing, in which case it plays this little cutscene where Liara is essentially talking to this hologram deep underground saying, oh, here's our last message. We allowed the Reapers to win, and they all wiped us out. You can choose to do nothing and just lose, actually. And if you do that, you know, this little message plays where, you know, this is the history of humanity and all, you know, civilization, that the Reapers will come back for you in the next 10,000 or, you know, 100,000 years or something. And, you know, this is a warning, essentially. And so that was a cool little ending that you could also do. But aside all the endings, what I really need to talk about is the real ending, which is the DLC. You know, people wanted a thing where they wanted homage to all their experiences and to all their friends and events and everything. And so the DLC is exactly the answer to that. You have this whole thing where essentially you basically have this little apartment complex you rent out. And you basically have this little base on the Citadel where you hang out with all of your squad mates. And honestly, it's really nice. And so you finally get all of this other stuff where you know, talk to your different team members. You get kind of like, it's literally the fan service part of the game where you basically get to relax, you get to all party. You're all in the apartment and you have these different mini games you can play with each other. You know, as the night goes on, people are getting more drunk. You can encourage people to drink more or drink less. You know, you can encourage, you know, different kinds of behaviors between the characters, you know, if they should hook up or not, or almost, or things like this. You know, so it's a really fun, and it's not like forced or cringe or anything. It feels really nice and natural, and it honestly feels like one of the best DLCs I've ever experienced. That is so kind of, I know, on note and on tone for this kind of game, because it just basically creates this thing where everyone is, you know, all in this mode of celebration that yes, that we did it, and you just get to explore and enjoy the characters and relationships you built over the past 3 games. And that really, to me, I think is the real ending. And it's really rewarding, frankly. Also in the DLC, there's even like funny, cool stuff. For example, there's this one arc where you have Evil Shepard, where Cerberus tried to, I think, make another clone of you or something. And it's so funny because Shepard starts realizing like his own mannerisms and the way he speaks. And he's like, I don't really talk like that, do I? It's one of the funniest, most well-written DLCs I've ever had. And it's honestly so nice. I can't help but love it. Also about Cerberus in general, in this game, they're seen more as a bad guys. They're kind of like, you know, very uncooperative with the war effort. They kind of want the Reapers to wipe out the other races so that, you know, they can take a stand. And Shepard's like, well, we need these guys. We need their help. You know, we don't want humans to be the only race in the galaxy. And the Cerberus is like, no, we do. And so they kind of become a competitor. You also go to the Asari homeworld in this game, and there's actually one Cerberus operative called Kun Lan, I believe, and he's basically this cybernetic ninja guy, and he's just cool. You know, he says almost nothing in the game, but he's like, I'm coming for you, Shepard. I'm gonna kill you, Shepard. Like, his only goal is to kill a Shepard, and he's kind of like the anti-hero, the rival throughout the game. And he has this katana and everything, and he's super cool. But yeah, no, I can't stress how much the DLC adds to this game. It feels like the right or proper ending that people would deserve, and it feels so, I don't know, just appropriate. And honestly, I just fell in love with it. I mean, I fell in love with the whole Mass Effect universe just from playing this DLC. I really took a huge break where I beat the game, but I never played any of the DLCs for any of these games until like honestly a decade later, and they were all really good. They were all really well written, fun, interesting, and it's like the DLCs for these games are better than entire games that they release today. That's just so refreshing. And so basically you have this whole thing where, you know, you're in the apartment, you have a big party, and then everyone's hungover in the morning, and then you finally take a picture of the whole group, you know, in the apartment, and you kind of frame it, and, you know, you say kind of goodbye to Mass Effect. It's one of the best send-offs I've ever seen in a game trilogy. So if you're feeling really upset that the ending was not to your liking, you basically can play the DLC to get that real ending that you really wanted, the real emotion that you wanted from this kind of ending, where all of your relationships come together. It really does it so well. I can't stress it enough that it was really truly amazing. Also, I have to say that Mass Effect 3 actually, I think, has some of my favorite music, and it's actually the softer tracks. You know, when you are kind of at the end with Anderson and you're kind of both lying there trying to make it to the very top, that's a really great track. You know, other things, other parts in this game. One of my favorite parts in this game, actually, that I think just is more so indicative of the entire story overall, is the last part where you're with Liara and she shows you this, like, she mind melds with you and she shows you her perception of the universe, and it's like almost at the end of the game where like you're about to go into this massive, you know, final battle, and she's like, hey, let me just show you something real quick. And it's something that she could have showed you at the beginning of the series, but it was so quintessential to the Mass Effect experience that I just immediately fell in love with that scene, and it was so iconic, and I was so glad I decided to romance Liara, because it just was this amazing interesting thing, and an introspective look into someone's soul that you rarely see in games and characters in general. I mean, BioWare can write amazing characters. It's really shocking. Speaking of that, since I might as well talk about it here, because I'm not going to talk about it later, is Mass Effect Andromeda. It is hot, steamy, bad garbage. Oh my god. Andromeda is just... And of course it wasn't made by the Edmonton office. It was given to the Montreal office or something. Aside from the fact that all the characters are... The main Shepards that you choose from are all ugly. A male Shepard is super short for some reason. He's called Ryder, I'm sorry. And it's either male or female. They also go to a completely new galaxy, Andromeda, to start this one off, which seems kind of unnecessary as well. The dialogue is amazingly bad, and what people really most know it for is the animations, which were absolutely completely broken and laughable. And it was, you know, the best thing to come out of that game were videos by like Crobat and other people on the internet compiling all the weird and crazy glitches, like genuine T-posing while you like use a jetpack, and you know, even like characters say like, oh sorry, my face is tired from, like, you know, all the problems and whatever. And you know, their eyes are fully open, like they have fully dilated eyes, and they just don't close, and they don't even blink their eyes barely. And just like, so I actually got to play because it was on Game Pass, and like there was this one guy where like Ryder's dad or whatever, his cheekbones would like move on their own. Like they don't know how to animate a face at all. It was such a catastrophe and so funny, but even the dialogue was bad. And I had a friend who was a diehard Mass Effect fan, and she, you know, loves the characters. And so she was like, you know, I'm really noticing the animations are bad. What really upsets me is that the dialogue of the characters is like awful. And I'm like, yeah, I told you so. It's funny though, like I think the epitome of it, I was playing it, and the black guy, whatever his name is like, oh wow, that, you know, Liam, I remember his name, Liam, you know, that alien, I think he's mad at me, probably because I shot him in the face. Wow. Amazing. So yeah, I mean, of course the gameplay, the gunplay in that game is not terrible, but everything else was just like discount Mass Effect at home. Like just garbage Mass Effect. Andromeda is a complete disaster. It was so bad they said we're not making Mass Effect for quite a while now. I'm like, okay, good. Get your stuff together, give it back to Edmonton, let them do it. And besides everything from being ugly, there was just like a comically stupid plot point where they meet a gay Krogan. Like, I'm sorry, but what? A gay Krogan. It was absolutely ridiculous. And he has like the lispy voice and everything. Like, it felt like a parody. It felt like the Matt Stone and Trey Parker had made this Mass Effect game. It was so stupid and ridiculous. And yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. But this is really the beginning of where video games start to get really, really bad for whatever reason, which is a larger conversation. But yeah, after actually giving Andromeda a chance and trying to play it like straight and correctly, it is terrible. There's nothing redeemable about it, and I just got bored with it, honestly, after like the first like chapter. They also introduced this new race of aliens, but they're pretty much boring. Oh my god, there's like a scene where there's this really ugly Asari. Like, she looks like Shrek. Like, it looks like a parody. That's what I'm saying. Who ends up shooting this thing behind Shepard to save him. And she's holding the gun backwards. I remember when they first showed the teaser thing at, like, E3. And, like, there's this whole scene where female writer takes a gun like out of like this crime lord's hand and just casually spins it around. And it was the most awkward animation I had ever seen. Like, she would be dead. She would be shot. It just made no sense. Even the branching dialogue tree is now like this weird green circle, and it just looks ugly. Everything about the game is like discount bootleg Mass Effect. And yeah, it's just awful, unfortunately. But yeah, all my thoughts I want to leave you with is like, don't bother with Andromeda, obviously. I mean, laugh at it. The running animations, oh my god, but don't knock Mass Effect 3 at all. I mean, in terms of the games in the series, I would say, even though 2 had way more characters and really cool characters like Thane and all these other people, it might be my least favorite of the series simply because from the story. Mass Effect 1 had the most distinct setting, the most distinct atmosphere, the most distinct music. It was so cool and so interesting. And I would say it would be my favorite story, but I would say 3 would be my second favorite. Again, they're all very close together, but 3 itself is really, really good because you just get to see the finality of a lot of these stories come to their conclusion, and I thought it was handled really, really well. Even the ending to the game was kind of like neat. It wasn't, super amazing, but it was still good. And again, you get to have the DLCs, which is some of the best DLCs I've ever played. And so with the DLC, I see 3 is almost my favorite. But yeah, all 3 of these games, like, none of them are bad. All 3 are really, really well done. They're all incredibly well polished and are strong in different ways. And I can see why this is an absolute classic. Like, the minds at BioWare are really masters of their craft, and it's really unfortunate that they've kind of been shafted, or whatnot, or what's going to happen to them in the future. But I do hope that this kind of game comes back, because it really is outstanding. Anyway, with all that being said, guys, I'll see you later.